this here, and we will play. It's Tri-City Sports Now with the expert of the Southern Conference, SoCon John Hooper. Read him on Medium. Read him shortly in herosports.com. And, of course, medium.com, where you have been doing all the Southern Conference football previews. I will say this about your employer, herosports.com. They wrote that in the Southern Conference this football season, to be honest with you, I agree with this. You said that as many as 7 teams could win it, but they said it's the NFL. It literally is any given Sunday, only it's any given Saturday. I mean, you can't even take, sure, there's a reason why ETSU scheduled VMI to honor the 50th anniversary of the Grantland Rice Bowl team. They want to win that game. We get it. So they schedule VMI. Don't take VMI for granted this year. I mean, it's that way. Nobody's really outstanding, but nobody's really all that bad. I don't know, is that what it is, just any given Saturday, and you cannot really go down the list of the schedule and say, well, there's an automatic victory, the way that you could in previous years?
I think so. I mean, doing the previews and just reading some of the bios on the players returning at each school, you're just like, well, my goodness, they're going to be good, or that they're going to be a tough opponent for anybody. And it seems like I've been doing that over and over again because everyone seems to return very good players. And, I can't remember a time, I think I'm right by saying this, 8 of the 9 teams in the league returned 3 or more starters along the offensive line, which is, that's amazing to think about. I think the only team not to was Western Carolina. Not return, they only return 1 starter, I think, up front, but everybody else returns at least 3. And so that's going to make, that's going to make for some good football games. I think whenever you have that kind of a return rate on either the offensive or defensive lines, but especially the offensive line, I think that's going to make some competitive football games. And, we saw how good ETSU's line was last year, even we talk about the big loss with Matthew Pike not being there anymore, but there's 3 pretty good offensive linemen returning, and if any aspect of the offense you need is that part of it. And I think that even if it's say Chance Thrasher struggles, he's got that, and they've got 2 seasoned veterans in the backfield to try and use. So really, it could be a lot worse than to have an inexperienced quarterback, because I feel like they have some pieces on offense and they have some important positions returning now, to make them, I think, at least get them through the early part of the schedule until Chance gets more comfortable as the starter and comfortable with what defenses are showing them in this league. So, yeah, I think that's important, but I think overall the league is going to be hard to pick. I'm looking at Chattanooga right now, and they've got guys that have transferred in, especially a wide receiver, which you don't know much about, but they got a 6'2" guy out of Middle Tennessee State, a 6'3" guy from Georgia Military, and they've got some bigger guys at receiver that can go alongside Bryce Nunley. And then you look at the running backs they've got the transfer from Albany, who's I think he's rushed for like 2,000 yards or 3,000 yards almost in his career already. And then you've got Tyrell Price back. And they weren't very good on offense last year, which is hard to believe considering the personnel they had. They just couldn't run the ball very well. But
no, they didn't.
Nick Tiano is a very good quarterback.
Yeah, you mentioned Nick Tiano, the quarterback, and I'm even seeing people listing him as a potential pro prospect. Because of his size. He's 6'5", he's 240. He started at Mississippi State. And so there's this idea that, if Tiano can have a good year. And frankly, I'm a little surprised that Tiano isn't getting more love from the preseason votes and all this because of his pro potential. And I realize a lot of it is his size, but it's not like Tiano has put up poor stats at all, or is just because of his physical build getting this. I mean, he's a talented QB. Don't get me wrong. I had Chattanooga down for fourth in the SoCon, basically because of Tiano. You're right, I didn't like their running game returning because it didn't do much last year. Just to show you how topsy-turvy, last year Samford was the preseason pick. I had him for last because I couldn't see anything outstanding about him except a 5'8" wide receiver, and I've said that, and I know some people think that I'm insane for saying that, but I just was, let me go out of the box here, and all this. Let me just ask you, I mean, if it's not VMI finishing last place, it's the obvious thing to do, and I had him for 7th, and I looked at the points, and I had to be out of 29 pollsters, the guy who ranked him the highest. You just pick VMI last. That's what you do. But if it's not going to be VMI for last, who do you think would be the most likely team to finish last?
I would pick Samford just because,
okay.
They lost so much. I mean, we talked about the effect that Devlin Hodges had last year, and even before that, Ahmad Gooden. And they've had a run of success, like I think 8 straight seasons or 9 straight seasons with winning seasons, or 6 or more wins, and it's going to be hard to maintain that. I mean, you're just asking a lot of this team to continue to manufacture those type of talents, at least on offense. And still, they only won six games last year, and they were the preseason pick to win it. I mean, they do have some talent returning. I mean, Schelling's a good receiver. You mentioned he's probably their best player on offense. Like I said, I just don't really see it this year. I mean, I think that they have some young potential. I certainly think this team next year will be in the top half of the Southern Conference, if not a team that challenges to do a lot in the league. But I just don't see it this year, and I think it's really going to be a struggle for them to win 4 to 5 games. I think 5 is probably what I would pick as far as their victory total at the end of the year. But they do have, I think they can get some wins in the non-conference. I'm interested to see what they'll do against Youngstown State this weekend. These are 2 teams that are looking to kind of rebound. I know Youngstown State came into the year ranked last year. They had that loss against the Butler or somebody, and then Samford's a team that was picked to win the SoCon last year, and kind of was an underachiever, and they'll be looking to prove themselves this year. So I think that's a game I'll definitely have my eye on. I think it'll be a good gauge of where you're looking at a SoCon team predicted in the bottom third or bottom half of the league, and you're looking at a Youngstown State team predicted, I think, at 7th in the Missouri Valley Football Conference preseason poll. So 2 teams that are towards the bottom of their league. We'll get to see how maybe the SoCon bottom half sizes up against the Missouri Valley.
Yeah, that's a great point right there. I mean, Missouri Valley usually a little bit more, thought of as a bit more prestigious in basketball, although I think that the SoCon is closing the gap. You mentioned, though, Youngstown State. I'm going to throw a curveball here. Yeah, losing to Butler or having that. How can you have Jim Tressel as your college president and lose to Butler? Well, not coach, college president. I mean, you got to figure that he's going to be. So what do they need? What do they need? No, we're going through that. Right here. You have to figure that's going on with the Penguins.
Yeah. I don't imagine Bo Pelini was pleased after that one.
I'll give you something that, though, sadly, the Penguins and the Bulldogs are going to have in common, and that is going to be no coverage from their local newspaper. We've talked about the dearth in Birmingham News or AL.com not sending writers out to cover Samford, but I don't know if you've heard this. The Youngstown Vindicator is shutting down Youngstown, Ohio, which is not a dinky poo place. It's going to have no daily newspaper. The horror of Thomas Jefferson. I mean, so I assume that there will be, with broadcast media and, now the internet media taking its place, but the question is, what kind of responsibility does one have in that community and all that? I get my news from Twitter. Good luck with that,
Well, it's hard for FCS schools. It is. And you would think, outside of that, where I guess you're probably competing with Florida and Miami, is the other game, I guess, or whatever. And there's probably some other ones out there. But, you think that you get a little bit more coverage. But like you said, the newspaper business has really changed. And it's a new media now. And it relies mostly on what you read on the internet and what you get from a Hero Sports, a stats, and so that kind of puts, I guess, maybe, and I'm not sure. I'm sure that being in Montgomery, that Alabama will get, the newspapers there will probably get some decent coverage out of it. You would think, but it's an interesting game. I think it's done a lot. I like the FCS Guardians Classics, to kind of get things kicked off. We've seen in years past with some really marquee matchups like a North Dakota State versus Montana a few years ago. And you have some of those type matchups. Chattanooga, I believe, played Jacksonville State maybe a couple years ago. So there's been some SoCon teams involved in it as well. I think that this game is intriguing because these are two teams trying to, keep their head above water and get off to a good start. Either one of them's high in their league. It's not as marquee of a matchup as we've had in this game in the past. But it is in Alabama, and that's a football-heavy state. So I think it should probably get at least some decent coverage on the Alabama end of it.
You hope so. You really hope so. Ohio isn't that bad of a state either and all this. Fellow Sports said to the Vindicator, assuming they're still, I forget when they got out of business, but if they still are doing some stuff at that time, that's when I'm like, okay, doesn't matter what the budget is right there. I'm sending a reporter down there, That's what I'm trying to get away with. What the heck? What are you trying to pinch pennies for anymore? Okay, what do I care if we earn a profit anymore? This sort of thing. Anyway, we're talking a little bit about the prestige, I guess, and even Ohio versus Alabama as a football state and all this. Jeff Goodman, he's a sports writer. He just recently ranked, I know you saw this, the Southern Conference basketball jobs, and he interviewed the coaches. What are the best jobs in the conference? Number one was East Tennessee State. I was a little surprised about that. They choose, and they are ranking these, let's see here, on tradition, game atmosphere, budget resources by games. Programs who are bought the fewest number of times will rank first. Geographical recruiting-based facilities, selling pros, and admission requirements, which I also think, I'm not necessarily sure that, admission requirements, Duke seems to do pretty well,
Well, and it's more of a football thing.
Yeah, anyway, East Tennessee State just barely beat out by 80 votes or 80 points to 77 votes Chattanooga. What do you think? Is that the best job in the conference, ETSU?
Yeah, I do. I think
more than Chattanooga because they've made the NCAAs more, but okay, go ahead.
Well, if you're just basing it on, the traditions are comparable. East Tennessee State has obviously been the better team, much better team of late. I think I look at it, what ETSU pays their coach, and
that's a good point. Yeah.
What Chattanooga pays theirs, so that right there tells me that ETSU is willing to make a sacrifice.
$650K, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
So I do think that's the best job, but second, I would say Chattanooga. It's hard to say because I don't know about game day atmosphere. It's kind of gone down.
Real fast, because I'm in my last minute here. Game day atmosphere, you mentioned Chattanooga was number 2. Let's see here. Mercer was number 3. UNC Greensboro is number 4. I would think, though, recruiting base, UNCG would be your number 1. Is that how you would rank it?
Yes, I would say they would have the most talent in that area, yeah, of course, I think that they would be my number one on recruiting base.
And so do the coaches, as a matter of fact. So there you have. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a later program. I will be talking to Caleb Calhoun with Asian House Vols Talk. Caleb Calhoun of All for Tennessee tomorrow. Colin Coward is next. Thank you to all the guests.